Okay, so welcome to my thank you class to say thank you for taking the time and the effort and being bothered to write a few words to leave a review. It really means the world, and reviews make a huge, huge difference to being able to spread the work of this method. And perhaps like me, you wish you'd come across this long before you did. So you could have experienced the benefits of what this method has to offer. So every time another review is left, it helps to spread it a little further and make it a little more well known. So a huge thank you from me for the part that you've all played in that. And now let's explore what you've been reading about. So come on up onto your feet. Oh, and you might want to throw a couple of cushions down by your mat just so you've got them within arm's reach for when you get down on your mat in a little while. But let's begin with a scan up on our feet. So bring yourself up into standing and give yourself as many breaths as it takes to just settle into your standing in what feels like an easy, normal way for you. However, that is going to show up in this moment. Trying not to assume how you're going to stand here, but just seeing what evolves. And as you stand here in this moment, can you notice where you feel the imprint of your day, however you've been spending your day up to this moment? Where do you feel the imprint of that within your felt sense? Maybe there's a general feeling of perhaps effort or level of energy. Or maybe there are clearer, stronger sensations in very specific parts of you. The impact of our experiences accumulate throughout our lives. And Tom Hanna had this lovely saying of these experiences creating a layered presence. So even though we're only here in this moment, can you feel the accumulation of what's gone before now? And where might you sense that? Where do you feel that? And then when our experiences accumulate in muscle tension, sometimes that shows up in more places than others. So having to think about balance as you stand here, what sense of balance do you feel between your front and your back? Does it feel as if there's more holding? Is there more layering of life through the front of you? Or is there more through the back? Or is there a sense of balance between your front and your back? And how does that show up through your feet? Do you feel as if there is more weight through your heels or towards the balls of your feet and your toes? And maybe that is different through one foot compared to the other. Maybe it's more to the heel of one and more to the ball of the other. And thinking about the balance between left and right, is there generally a sense of more weight going through one leg and foot compared to the other? Does one just seem to feel as if it has more effort or more weight going through it? Does one foot feel more grounded, more connected? And are there any different sensations that show up for you through your left side compared to your right? Does one side just generally feel easier, softer, or more comfortable? Where life layers and accumulates more in certain parts than others, it does a great job of taking us from our true center, taking us out of balance. And your practice that you're going to explore is going to help you to restore that balance so you can move freely in any direction from your true center, not just where your brain thinks it is. So from your standing scan, come and lay yourself down on your back. Lay your arms wherever is most comfortable for you. And your legs as well. So always exploring the movements without increasing discomfort. So if that means changing position so you can feel a bit more comfortable, please go ahead and move yourself however you need. And now can you trace your entire outline? So from your head, along one shoulder and arm, around the hand, the armpit, down that side of your torso from the armpit through the side of the ribs, the waist, the hip, all the way down the leg to the foot. And then across the heel and up the inside of that leg, and keep going all the way around the edge of your other side until you are back at the head. And notice if there is a side or a certain area that feels trickier to trace. Does it get a little vague in places? One of the ways our accumulated holding tension shows up is that it's difficult to sense and feel certain parts of ourselves. Where is your outline clear to feel, and where is there a sense of vagueness? And once you've drawn that outline, what kind of picture have you drawn of yourself? Is it symmetrical? Are your arms resting the same distance from your sides? Is one leg laid out wider than the other? Or maybe your head is tipping off towards one shoulder. Our bones lay where the muscles place them. So if at rest, your bones are laid in slightly different positions between left and right, know that they are there because the muscles have put them there. And then within that outline that you've traced, that you've drawn, where do you feel the heaviest parts of yourself in contact with the ground? And how balanced do those heaviest parts feel between your left side and your right side? Are there subtle or more obvious differences between left and right now that you're laid down compared to when you were on your feet? And as well as our muscles placing our bones, and therefore if the muscles through the left side are functioning differently to the right, we might be laid slightly differently. Any holding tension in our muscles, especially around our belly and chest, affects what movement there is as we breathe, and therefore how much we breathe, how much we can breathe freely and fully. So place your hands on your belly, kind of around the level of your belly button. And just notice what movement there is under your hands, not trying to change anything. But just notice, does your belly gently rise up into your hands as you inhale and then melt back down as you breathe out? Is there clear movement happening there, or is it very small? Or maybe there's a different movement flow that's taking place for you, depending on what kind of habits you've gotten into in how you breathe. And then bring your hands up to the top of your chest, so they're just underneath your collarbone. And listening with your hands, notice what movement you feel up at this end of your torso. Does your chest feel still and quiet? Or again, does it gently rise up into your hands as you inhale and soften back down as you breathe out? And then leaving one hand on your chest, place one hand back down on your belly and notice if the space under one hand just seems to have a bit more movement through it as you lay here resting and breathing. And where there is less movement, is it possible there might be some holding tension there for you? Or maybe in both parts. And when you've had time just to notice that, rest your arms however is comfortable for you. And we're going to begin to move very intentionally and deliberately to start to effectively release holding tension. Release some of that layered presence that might have accumulated as muscle tension. So in whatever way you want to explore this, could you turn up the tension anywhere and everywhere you feel okay to? So tighten your muscles into whatever shape and position you want to be able to tighten into. And pause in that tension, that increased holding tension in that moment. And notice your imprint with the ground. Has it changed? Is there now less of you in contact with the ground? And then you keep breathing as you need and slowly and intentionally release that tension. Just letting it melt and fade until it's no longer on. Allow yourself to go floppy at the end like a yawn. And then again, go ahead, turn up the tension in your system, however you feel able to do that. And then hold in that increased tension, like you've just tightened anything and everything. And where do you feel yourself tighten the most? Is it your back, your belly, your neck, your hands? Where do you feel it? Focus on those parts you feel it most and notice how they change as you intentionally relax those muscles. Taking as many breaths as it takes to release. Just when you feel you've melted and deflated, maybe there's a tiny bit more release to come. And then go ahead, explore that one more time. Just tightening anywhere and everywhere you feel able to. Notice how your weight against the ground changes. Notice what kind of shape you scrunch into. Is it a bracing? Is it a curling? Is it an arching? Maybe something else? And then slowly melt yourself out of that, like you're just turning down the volume on a radio until it's no longer on. And then when you are back at rest, as in no conscious effort, just check in with your contact with the ground again. And does it already feel somehow different to when you first laid down? Where you feel heavy within your outline? Maybe where you feel your outline? And then from there, if your legs are straight, one at a time, slide up your heels to bend your knees. Placing the soles of your feet on the mat, roughly hip width, not too close and not too far from your seat. So you've just experienced this skill of how you can release your own muscle tension from within. And now we're going to explore that in very deliberate movements to release particular patterns of muscular holding. So bring your focus to the back of your pelvis. Notice the weight of it against the floor. And then notice that space just a little higher up around the back of your belt line. So it's this back of belt line area you're now going to focus on contracting. So when you are ready, begin to arch your lower back so your belt line lifts from the floor, and you're going to roll your pelvis towards your feet. Feel the weight shift towards your tail. Notice how it feels to intentionally tighten your lower back, and then change your mind and just release that arch. It's doing less and less until you return to rest. And whatever we explore and do movement-wise through one side, there's always a relationship to the opposite. So pop one hand on your belly. And this time, as you go ahead and arching your lower back, can you let your belly lift up into that hand, allowing the front to lengthen as you turn up the effort in your back muscles within your comfort, and then change your mind, like taking your foot off the accelerator of those back muscles until they are at rest. And then we're going to think about balance with this movement. So this time as you arch, letting your belly lift, pelvis rolls forward. Notice if one side of your back feels a bit tighter or one side of your pelvis feels heavier. If you can feel that happening, tip to that side of your pelvis just a little bit more. So intentionally arch a little off center. If you feel balanced, just choose a side. And notice how arching off center changes the feel across your lower back. And then change your mind, release your back, let your pelvis come back to center and rest. And whichever side you just arched off to, you're going to explore arching to that side again. So when you are ready, arch your back, rolling to that side of your pelvis. And notice what response there is all the way up your spine to your head. How does your head respond to this? Does your head roll to the opposite side of your mat? And then melt your back, releasing pelvis and head end and everything back to rest. And then just explore arching to that side one more time. Belly expands, lower back contracts. Notice how for your pelvis to be off center is to tighten one side of your back more than the other. Can you feel the subtleties of that? And then notice how it feels to relax your back. Feel there is no more conscious effort. And when you are back at rest, notice the balance of your pelvis, what you can sense across the back of your belt line. So you may well have just gone into in order to release a holding pattern for you. But for our brain to be able to feel where our true center is, we need to explore that to the other side of center as well. So one way of knowing we have a little bit of a rotation in our pelvis is it doesn't feel as easy or as clear to explore this movement to the other side. So without knowing how this is going to feel, let's explore arching to the other side. So go ahead and arch your back. And as your pelvis rolls forward this time, just tip a little off to the other side. Notice if that feels as easy to coordinate. And if you feel the tightening to the other side of your back now. And then change your mind, softening and lengthening your back till there's no more effort. Keeping the breath flowing continually. And then go ahead and arch again to this second side, belly expands, and notice what response there is through your neck and head. Does your head respond in the same way this side? Or is there less connection? And then releasing the back, notice what else releases with it. It's never just one part. And then go ahead and explore that arch and release to this second side one more time. And where do you most clearly feel the effort in your back? Is it off to the side? Might this help explain if you have a niggle in your back on one side? And then slowly releasing, coming back to rest. And having explored the rebalancing of your pelvis to both sides, let's come back to center now. And go ahead and arch down the center of your mat. And does the effort through your lower back muscles feel more balanced? Belly expands, lower back contracts. And then releasing your back, finding that place of no conscious effort. And then let's feel how it is to comfortably and easily lengthen your lower back now you've released the tension. So could you sink your lower back into the floor, feel it lengthen, and now turn up the tension as you sink your belly. Now you are tightening through the front and lengthening and opening through the back. Is this easier, more familiar for you? And then focus on your belly where it's tightened and intentionally release that tension. Taking as many breaths as you need. And And then go ahead and take an arch. Feel the belly expand as the back contracts. And notice how connected your head is to the movement of your pelvis. If it stays where it is, could you let your chin lower down, following your pelvis? And as you release your back, notice if that releases your pelvis and neck. How connected are they to your center? And then go ahead and lengthen your back, sink your belly, and notice what response there is up through your neck and head. If it stayed where it was, could you tip your head back? If you're shining your chin towards the ceiling, you're recreating the red light reflex here so that now you can release it and get even more skilled at taking tension out of your belly and neck. Just when you've released, check that you let go of your belly. Maybe there's a millimeter more softening and releasing to come. And then let's just add in the other end of our system to this. So go ahead and arch again, letting your head follow the pelvis. And as you turn up the tension in your lower back muscles, could you begin to lift your heels up from the floor and feel where the back of the legs switch on, all the way down to the heels? So let the heels float up as if you were wearing high heel shoes. And then as you release your lower back, send that release up through the neck, down through the legs, melting those feet. And then as you sink into your flatten, lengthening the back, turning up the tension in your front, could you sink into the heels and let the soles of your feet float on up? Notice where you tighten down through the front of your legs, ankles, and feet. And then can you release all the way out to the toes and head by releasing your center? As many breaths as it takes. And then when you finish that last one, if it's comfortable, slide your legs out straight one at a time. Give yourself a moment at rest to allow your system to save the effects of those movements you've just been exploring. Notice your contact with the ground, your imprint. Is it bigger, heavier, more comfortable somehow? And then we're going to play with a little more release with these patterns of restoring balance between our front and our back. These are our biggest muscle group surface areas through our front and our back. So it makes sense to spend a little more time here. So sliding up your heels one at a time. We're going to bring one leg in at a time into this pattern of releasing our front and our back. So choose whichever leg you'd like to begin with, left or right. We're going to explore it with both. And then with whichever hand, could you trace the front of that side of your torso between the front of your shoulder and the hip crease of the leg that you're choosing to start with? So you're just going to trace from the front of your shoulder along the chest, the belly, into the hip crease on that side. Up and down a few times, just putting a spotlight onto this side for your brain to focus on. And then trace the back of that side where you feel the shoulder blade, back of ribs, lower back, and hip in contact with the ground on that side. And then when you've done that, you're going to link your hands together, make a hand basket for the back of your head to sit in, pop them behind your head. And this is where your cushions might come in handy. You're going to pop them under the elbows just to support your arms if they need. So there's no effort or weight. Your elbows aren't lifted. They're supported by the floor or cushions. Nice. And we're going to come into our arch again to intentionally increase the tension in our back. And we're going to start up at the head end. So press your head back into your hands. Spread those elbows a little wider, and can you feel your upper back switch on a little more? And then arch your lower back, letting your front expand. And your chosen leg, could you lift up the heel on that side and feel the effort continue down the back of that leg to the foot? And then releasing your lower back all the way up through the shoulders, all the way down through the leg. So now instead of contracting the back, you're going to open and lengthen it. So could you begin to fold your elbows towards each other and feel your upper back widen? Feel that space there. And then sink your lower back into the floor. And you're going to bring up that knee towards the same side, in the direction of the same side elbow. And as you sink your chest, let your head and shoulders come forward. Feel where you are shortening through the front and between this elbow and knee. And now forget about your head end and leg. Just begin to release your belly and your chest. And notice if that lowers your head and foot. And when you find the floor, unfold the elbows and slide that leg out straight. Until you are all the way uncurled at rest, and let yourself go floppy. And if you've been slumped over in a seated position for a lot of the day, this is a wonderful way to release that holding and be able to breathe more freely. So now could you open through your front as you press your elbows back and arch your lower back? Could you let your chest and belly lift and expand? And go ahead and point that foot of your straight leg. Feel the space through the front of that hip. And then the front has nothing to do here. Just release your back. Feel all that effort fade until it is no longer there. And then having released your back, could you keep opening and lengthening your back? And as you sink and tighten in your front, use that sinking in your center to draw that knee back up and in, to fold up your elbows and curl yourself forward. And feel the space through the back of this side of the leg that's lifted. And where you've turned up the tension in your front. And then forget about your shoulders, head and leg. Just begin to open out from your belly, up through your chest. Pause when your head and foot land, allowing your back to still be soft. Unfold your elbows, slide the leg out, and let yourself deflate at the end of that. Take your hands away. If it's comfortable, you can slide your other leg out straight as well. And notice, what was your focus side there? Notice the contact that the back of that side from your shoulder to your foot makes with the ground. Having intentionally released more tension in the front, has that given you more contact with the ground on that side? How does it compare to the side you've not yet explored those movements on? So you're getting a before and after scenario here. And how does the front of your focus side feel? What sense of space is there from the front of the shoulder down through the chest, belly, hip, all the way to the foot? How long does it feel? And how does that compare to the other side? Have you created more space? Do you breathe more into that side? And then we're going to explore these same movements on the other side. So your second side leg, you can leave that out straight, bend up your other knee, and with whichever hand, trace this second side of your front, from the front of your shoulder down chest, belly to the hip crease. So you're just putting your brain's focus on this side of you now. And then when you've done that a couple of times, trace the back of that side as well, from the shoulder blade through the ribs, lower back to the back of the hip. So the front and the back are always moving and functioning in relation to one another. It's never just one side. And then linking your hands back together, popping them back behind the head, supporting your elbows as you need, but notice if they don't need quite as much support because you've already released your chest muscles a little more. Go ahead and take an arch and feel the effort turn up in your back, the space open through your front, and point the foot of that straight leg. Feel the space all the way down that hip to the foot. And then melt your back. Just turning down the volume till it's no longer on. And then focus on your center. As you lengthen your lower back into the floor, sink and tighten your belly. Fold up your elbows, closing your chest. And use that sinking in your front to bring your head and shoulders up and that knee up. And where do you feel a shortening through the front of this second side? And does it shorten as easily as the first side? Are you closer or further from the knee? Not that the aim is to get to the knee, but is there a difference? And then forget about your head and leg end. Focus on releasing the center. Let your belly get longer and softer. Notice how that opens you out. And when you find the floor, keep lengthening out the leg to open the hip, unfolding the elbows to open the chest. And let yourself breathe fully into your belly and chest here. And then go ahead and arch, turning up the effort in the back, opening through the front. Can you feel your belly expand? Can you feel your chest widen? And then where is the clearest part of effort in the back of you? Put your focus on that spot and release from that spot in all directions. And then could you keep lengthening through the back? And as your back expands, your front sinks and shortens. Your ability to curl up here is dependent on your back's ability to lengthen freely. This is not about strength. And in your curl, could you breathe into the back, the space between the shoulder blades? And then forget about your back. It has no effort to play here as you release your front, doing less and less work. When you are all the way back at rest, release your hands. If you want to slide both legs straight, go ahead and do that. Letting go of anything that is not required here to sense and breathe. And what do you notice now about your two sides? How does the second side of your back now make contact with the ground? Has it changed after more release through the front of that side? Is there more space through that side of your chest, your belly, your hip? Just with two more of those arch and curl movements, but through that second side. It's not about how many repetitions we do, more it's about the way in which we do them as to whether they are effective at creating change. Thinking about that layered presence idea and how life manifests. All of life is experienced through our bodily senses and therefore our nervous system. We experience all of life through our system. Therefore, to change this accumulation, this layered presence, this tension that manifests, to change it for the long term, so to change how we move and feel and function, that can only come from within. Only you can create that long-term change. And that is exactly what you're exploring here. So what changes can you feel as you lay here now? Your imprint with the ground, your connection with the ground. You've explored movements to restore some balance between left and right, but mostly to restore coordination and balance between the front and the back. And now let's bring some focus to releasing the parts that sit in between our front and our back through our sides. So one leg at a time, slide up your heels and bend your knees. And if you noticed when you were up on your feet in the beginning that the sensations through your sides and your footprints and the effort of your legs was somehow different between left and right, the movements you're going to explore now will help to restore the balance. So one side isn't always working harder and wearing more than the other. So to bring focus to this part of you now, could you trace your sides from your armpits down the ribs to the sides of your belt line, the sides of your hips? So just tracing up and down, saying to your brain that this is where we're going to focus the movement now. And then when you've done that a few times, place your hands so that you can feel the sides of your belt line, the sides of your waist. You'll find that soft section between the bones of the pelvis and the bones of the rib cage. So it's that intersection. that nice soft squidgy intersection in between pelvis and ribs. And on the sides, this is where the movement is going to take place now. So feel how the back of your pelvis is flat and heavy on the floor. It's going to turn, but it's going to stay level and flat. So we can focus the movement on the sides and help our waist muscles to function easily and freely. So whichever side you'd like to begin with, go ahead and hike your hip on that side as if you were going to carry a laundry basket on your hip there. And can you feel that you're intentionally closing the gap between the side of your pelvis and rib cage? Your waist is getting short on this side. And then where you've shortened it, go ahead and release your waist. So let those muscles soften to lengthen your waist, releasing the hip. So you're back at a balanced resting length between left and right. Whichever side you just explored that on, we're going to stay with that side. You may well have a preference. It might be an unconscious preference. We'll soon find out. But the same side, go ahead and hike your hip again. And notice the opposite side of your waist. Is it responding by lengthening? Could you help it to lengthen by breathing into that lengthening side as you hike and shorten this focus side? And then release your hip hike by lengthening the waist. Feel the texture soften and change as you do that. All the way back to rest. And then we're going to explore this side one more time. So when you are ready, you're going to hike that hip again. Notice how far up this side you feel a response to that. Do you maybe feel a little bit of response through the ribs, the armpit? Maybe your head even gets drawn to this side. Your neck muscles are connected all the way down to this waist. And then this time, as you release your waist, lengthening and releasing the hip, whichever side you're lengthening, could you let your pelvis and knees just gently roll to the other side of your mat? Rolling to the other hip, letting the knees roll with it. Just as far as this feels nice and free. Releasing your side allows freer movement through your pelvis and legs. And then roll the back of your pelvis back to center, letting the knees follow. And whichever side you've just rolled your pelvis and legs to, go ahead and let them roll that way again. Where you were hip hiking, feel the space through that side now from the armpit all the way down the ribs, waist to the knee. And then roll the back of your pelvis back through center. The legs will follow. And then just as a comparison, before hip hiking on the second side, let your pelvis and legs roll the other way. And is that as free and as easy? Is there a difference in how that feels, having not explored hip hikers on this waist? And then when you're back at center, we are going to explore hip hikers on this second side. So many of us often hold a little more tightness in one side of our waist than the other. A lot of us have one side of our pelvis that is a little bit higher than the other. And that will show up by the hip hiker movement just feeling easier and more coordinated on one side. So noticing how it feels to explore it on this second side, hands at your waist, pelvis is flat and heavy like a microwave plate. Go ahead and hike your second side hip. as if you were going to carry a laundry basket on this hip. And is that as easy? Or maybe other things get involved here to try and make it happen. Does your back arch? Does something else happen? Anything that's switched on, let that release. Let your waist lengthen. Come back to rest. And then go ahead, hike that hip again. And does your first side waist open freely in response? Is there a coordinated balance between your left and right waist here? And then make space at the waist to release that hip hiker. All the way back to rest. And then explore that one more time on that side and notice how far up the side of your rib cage here do you feel a response to that tightening of your waist? Is there a response into the armpit, into the shoulder, into the neck? Does your head respond? And then this time, as you make space at your waist, releasing the hip, use that lengthening of this side to roll your pelvis and your legs to the other side of your mat. The freedom of the pelvis and legs is dependent on the freedom of your side here. And is that movement now easier than it was before the hip hiker? Lay the back of your pelvis back through center. Let the legs follow. And then we're going to play with this. This is a lovely integrative movement. So resting your arms out wide. Go ahead and roll your pelvis to one side. Feel the opposite side of your torso lengthen, but also your belly and your back. What can you allow to be saggy and long and heavy through your center here? And then melt your pelvis back to center. Let everything else follow. And once you feel where center is, keep going the other way. And as your legs tip one way, what can you allow to soften and lengthen on the opposite side of your belly, your side and your back? How lazy can you explore this? And as you play with exploring, could you make it playful and joyful as you roll from side to side? Notice how far up through your spine do you feel a response to this rotational movement? Is it just around your pelvis or does it travel further? Is there a shift of weight across your shoulders? As there is a shift of weight across your pelvis? And how does your neck and therefore your head respond here? Is there a rolling of your head from side to side as there is with your pelvis? Does that happen freely? The more supple you are in your center, the more your periphery will respond and move. So if this isn't happening, how would it be to let your head roll the opposite way to your pelvis? That might already be happening. That is a full rotational movement of your spine from one end to the other. This is very functional. This is a pattern that takes place when we walk functionally and freely. And then just finish up the next one or two that you're on. And let yourself come to rest in whatever position is good for you. And imagine all of those movement explorations, very intentional ways of moving, focusing on awareness. Imagine that they were all delicious, indulgent yawns, which is essentially what you've been doing. You've been yawning the tension out of your muscles. And now you get to enjoy that floppy state at the end of a really good, satisfying yawn, where you go all kind of floppy and melty. And now, as you lay here, can you check in with your outline? If you were to trace and draw your entire outline now, how does what you draw now, based on what you feel, compare with the drawing you made when you first laid down? Are you a different shape, size? Is there more or less symmetry between your left and your right? And if you were to go ahead and tighten anything and everything in a freestyle pandiculation, do you feel a need to do that now? And if you do want to explore that, is it the same as it was at the start? And then place one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. And as you lay here, just focusing on what you can feel, what movement is there under your hands now? Is there any more movement, no matter how great or subtle that change is there a change? Nice. More movement here means more breath. More breath means more energy, more flow, more life. Tom Hanna believed in each of us having an innate ability to create freedom from within. And he said that we are made to be self-sensing, self-correcting, autonomous creatures. And that is what you are exploring through your practice. So from there, when you are ready, you're going to roll over to one side, gently make your way back up onto your feet, coming back into standing. And see if you could avoid the temptation to stand deliberately or shuffle and reposition yourself when you're back up in standing. Could you just let yourself be for a moment where you land? And as you stand here now, notice, where do you feel the imprint of what you've been exploring down on the floor? Where do you feel that within your system? What sense of balance do you feel through your front and your back now? And your left and your right? And how does that show up through your footprints here? Are your footprints different to how they were at the start? Do you feel the weight spread in perhaps a different pattern to what you noticed at the beginning? Nice. And we are all done. Thank you for taking class.